I've never heard of it before. Outside of my family, I really haven't either, and I understand why. Obviously. But the last part, it never bothered me. You never saw the face in the moon frown. I never saw the face on the moon, I said. You aren't thinking of singing that to our kid, are you? Anne rubbed her very pregnant belly out of habit. I didn't respond right away. She knew what I was thinking and started shaking her head no before the words leapt from her lips. I mean, it's tradition after all. No way, she said. I don't want to give our kid a complex. It won't. I heard it all the time and I'm okay. Anne smirked and I rolled my eyes, anticipating the joke. I cut it off at the pass. You married me. In fact, you couldn't wait to get in on these family traditions. She burst out laughing and it made me smile. Her laugh, a huge blurt followed by nearly soundless cackles, it made my heart sing. Even more so when I saw her swollen belly bob up and down with joy. Can I think about it at least? She asked. I want to ask around to see if anybody else has ever heard this lullaby. I said sure. We changed the subject and went back to assembling the crib. Our son Mac was due in a few weeks, and we had fallen behind in prepping his room. It wasn't totally our fault. Needing to stretch our money, we bought a crib secondhand from somebody who lived across the country. Anne found it during her late-night web crawling through Facebook groups. There were options locally, but they all looked like cheap death traps. I'm sure they were fine, but when Anne laid eyes on this one, it was love at first sight. She had to have it. It was an antique, but very well maintained. The seller said that it had been a family heirloom that they had inherited when their parents had died. Since the seller had no kids, nor plans to have any, they put it up for sale. Oddly, they couldn't move the piece and the price just kept dropping. When it fell into Anne's target range, she sprung. Even with a higher shipping cost, it was cheaper than something new from Amazon. The crib arrived in 4 boxes. The seller, who left no return address, had carefully pried apart the pieces and shipped them in separate containers. As expected, there were issues with the shipping, and we got the pieces at different times. The last box arrived yesterday, so we were reassembling it carefully. I can't believe they took this thing apart, I said. This is old world craftsmanship. I know, Anne said, beaming. It's stunning, isn't it? It really was. The old world artisan had made the crib from mahogany wood, so it was as sturdy as can be. The cooler was a rich brown with the faintest highlights of red, but the carvings on the head and footboards took this from a delightful piece of furniture to a room centerpiece. In the center of the headboard was a carving of a smiling sun, their eyes cast down into the crib. The carved radiating rays went all the way to the edges of the board. Along the top, the artist carved what looked like cats, all following a crawling toddler. The footboard was just as intricately designed. In the middle was the moon, another face looking down at the crib with a Mona Lisa smile. The craftsmen had carved the different phases in an arc, radiating from each side of the central moon. If you started from the left and followed along, the face would gradually appear as more of the moon came into view. A full, smiling face greeted you at its height, before phasing back to nothing on the right. Carved figures depicting medieval townspeople who lived and worked in a small town adorned the top. We made out most of them. Butchers, bakers, blacksmiths, farmers, but a few were a mystery to us, especially the man in the middle. It looked like a musician, but he was playing an instrument that I had never seen before. It kind of looked like a cow's horn, but I wasn't positive. It was seeing the smiling moon face that had dislodged the lullaby from my memory. When Mac moves out of this, how much do you think we can sell this for? I asked, carefully assembling the legs to the base. We're not selling this, Anne said instantly. This is now our heirloom to pass down. Yeah, until our kid sells it on their preferred social media marketplace sometime in the future. It'll probably be called Happy Time or Friendship or something. Well, if we raise little Mac right, he'll hold on to it forever, she said, rubbing her belly again. I can already tell that he's a good boy. And we finished putting the crib together and I moved it into place. We took a step back to admire it. Anne was right, as usual. This was a stunning piece of furniture. She leaned her head against my shoulder. We're actually doing this, huh? Becoming parents. Crazy, I said, slinging my arm around her waist. I'm gonna be somebody's dad. Jesus. She laughed. You're going to be a great dad. Only if I sing my family's traditional song to them. She laughed. Not a chance. Can I get you to rub my feet? They're killing me. A few hours later, we headed to bed. And bedtime had gotten earlier and earlier as the pregnancy had advanced. I assumed it was the body's biological clock getting us ready for late-night feedings and butt changes. Outside our window, I spied the full moon in all its glory. It was one of those freakishly large full moons that look amazing in person, but when you snap a picture, it just never captures the astonishing view. I called Anne over to take a peek. She waddled over to the window and glanced up. Damn, the moon looks huge, like the size of my belly big. I reached out and rubbed her protruding stomach. I wouldn't go that far. Oh my God, she said, pointing up. She started laughing at first, but soon tears began falling. What? Are you okay? Is something wrong with the baby? I think I see a face on the moon. What? She pointed up again. Off to the side. The darker spots, they look like a face. Do you see it? No. It's smiling. I rolled my eyes. Are you messing with me? No, I swear, she said. Do you honestly not see it? I don't, I confessed. It just looks like the moon. Hold on a second. She grabbed her phone and zoomed in and then snapped a photo. She showed me and pointed at what she said was a smiling face. Do you see it now? Kinda, but not really. Wow. Do you see any face at all? I looked back up at the full moon. Nope, I said, scanning the surface for anything that might trick my mind and finding nothing. What do I get if I see a smiling face? Sweet treats. I could use a snack. Dreams, sweet dreams, I corrected. Does this mean that we can sing the song to Mac now? And not if there's a chance he'll see a frowning moon. The world is already fracturing. We don't need to add on some lunar curses for good measure. Anne said. And you coming to bed? Go ahead, I said, still staring up at the moon. I think I caught a second wind. I'm gonna stay up for a bit. Don't be up too late. Remember, we have that appointment tomorrow. I kissed her forehead and sent her back to bed. Within minutes, Anne was asleep. She's like a robot in that way. She just powers down. The pregnancy has made it easier for her to slip away to the land of Nod. I was tired, but I was also curious. And seeing a face on the moon really hit me. I wasn't jealous, well, maybe a little, but I suddenly had a desire to look up the lullaby's origins. I hopped on my computer and started searching, but I came up empty. There wasn't a single thing out there about the song. I glanced at the clock and saw that it was just after 10. My dad, a notorious night owl, was probably still up. I decided to give him a call and see if he knew anything. He picked up on the second ring.
Everything okay with my grandkid?
Yeah, I said. Mac and Ann are fine.
Oh, thank God,
he said, chuckling.
I can't begin to tell you how nervous I am on your behalf. I'm so worried that something bad is gonna happen. I never had this when your mom was pregnant with you.
Maybe I wasn't as important to you as your first grandbaby, I joked. He laughed.
Yeah, that must be it. What's going on? Why the late night call?
I got a random question for you. You remember the nursery rhyme you guys used to sing to me when I was a kid?
Oh, I sing a lot of songs.
The one about the moon smiling and frowning. The old German one.
Oh, yeah,
he said.
That one was odd. I hadn't thought about it for years, but it popped back into my head when you were born.
It's probably because my folks sang it to me all the time when I was a kid. It was strange. Maybe that part of your brain gets activated when you finally have a little one. What do you know about it?
Not much, admittedly. My parents sang it to me and theirs sang it to them. It was some old family tradition. Kind of like Hank the Elf, you know. Hank the Elf was Santa's magical helper, who would leave me chocolates and a sock that I hung off my dresser every night in December. Sometimes we would exchange notes, even after I knew Hank was my dad. I would still write notes to Hank, and like clockwork, he would write back. I couldn't wait to do that with Mac.
It's weird. I can't find anything about it online. Like nothing. No lyrics, no history, no recorded melody. It just doesn't exist anywhere outside of our family.
Yeah, that is odd. My parents always told me it was an old folk song, and I never had any reason to doubt it.
There's seriously nothing. Look for yourself, I said. I heard him typing away on his computer. A few seconds later, he sighed.
Well, ain't that something?
And did our ancient ancestors make up the song and never spread it around?
I don't know. Maybe you can check in with a professor of mythology or music or middle-age history. They might be able to shed some light on it.
Maybe it was a part of a ritual or something, I said half-jokingly. Maybe the elders were witches or something. He laughed.
If they were and I never got the ability to cast spells, I'm gonna be so upset.
We BS'd a little before I told him about the new crib. I switched over to FaceTime and I went into Mac's room. I showed him the crib and he was impressed. He adored the little carvings but worried that they might be a choking hazard if Mac broke them off. Oh, I hadn't thought of that, I said.
Oh, you will. As soon as that boy arrives, your dad brain kicks in, and all you'll be able to think about is all the ways everyday items inside your house might spell death for your kids. Oh, it's exhausting.
Yeah, we've already started baby-proofing cabinets. I hate the lock so much. He laughed.
I thought you were going to do a dinosaur theme in his room. When did you switch to a storybook theme?
We didn't switch.
And then why'd you get a bed with figures from the Pied Piper on it?
What?
And the guy, he's in the middle. He's playing a flute.
That doesn't make him the Pied Piper.
Well, then why is the other side a bunch of rats being led by a toddler?
Those are cats.
Son, you may want to look at them again.
I walked over to the crib and inspected the carved animals closely. From afar, I swore that they were cats. But up close, there was no denying that I was wrong. They were rats. Ah, son of a... Yeah, you're right, they are rats.
What? The teeth weren't a giveaway.
I hadn't even paid attention, to be honest. I doubt Anne did because when she mentioned it to me a few weeks ago, she said something about cats.
Oh, parent brain comes for us all. Consider this the first of many times you'll be too tired or emotionally drained to think straight. Welcome to the club.
We chatted a bit more before saying our goodbyes and hanging up. I had been half paying attention to what my dad was saying for a couple of reasons. For one, he was going long on an article that he read once years ago that talked about the story of the actual Pied Piper. In my dad's typical storytelling fashion, he included every fact or half-remembered fact that ended up muddying the narrative. Apparently, a bunch of kids in 1200s Germany died or went missing or something. Some people said that the Piper was a metaphor for death. Some said that he was real. And others said that he was a witch. I don't know, and Dad was all over the place. For two, I couldn't shake the image of the Pied Piper being carved into a crib. I mean, why in the world would anybody ever make a bed with that as the theme? The guy ended up drowning all those kids. Who would want a nightly reminder of that? A thought streaked across my brain. What would Anne think when I told her about this in the morning? How crushed would she be? She loved this crib. I turned to leave the room when I heard a car turn down our street, blasting a bass-heavy song. It was so loud that it rattled our indoor fixtures. I opened up the blinds, flooding the room with moonlight, and I glared out. I spied a little truck with blue running lights slowly driving down our street. They seemed determined to wake up the whole neighborhood. And then I chuckled to myself. Jesus, I'm becoming an old man already. This kid has aged me. I went to pull the blinds back down when I glanced up at the full moon. And that's when I saw it. My jaw went slack and I could hear blood whooshing in my ears. Tears welled up and burst, rolling down my frozen face. I hadn't wanted to believe Anne earlier because it sounded so impossible. And yet here it was, looking down at me. A face on the moon. And he was frowning. Oh fuck. I said before I heard something snap behind me. I turned and looked but saw nothing out of place. At first, in the yellow moonlight, I saw what had snapped. A single figure had been ripped from the crib. The Pied Piper. I flipped on the light, but I couldn't see where the figure had fallen. I didn't know how it had snapped off. The figure must have cracked during shipping and finally broken off the railing. That seemed far-fetched, though. I had seen the Piper figure firmly attached earlier, but what else could it be? Nothing running through my brain made sense. It was just me in here, and it's not like it broke itself off the crib. It was just a piece of wood. I ran over to the crib and I flung off the mattress. The figure had disappeared. I was about to move the crib aside to check behind the dresser next to it when I froze. The moon's smiling face on the footboard had changed into a frown. The sun on the headboard was gone altogether. I let go of the railing like it was electrified and I stumbled back. In the corner of my mind, I heard the faintest notes from a flute play. My eyes caught the shadow of a man dart behind me. That was my cue to get the hell out. I bolted out, slamming the door behind me. I turned to make sure that nothing had followed me out of the room. There was nothing. I waited a second or two just to make sure. "What are you doing?" It was Anne. The shock of hearing her voice made me scream. "Are you feeling okay?" I saw a face on the moon." She looked crushed. She walked over to me and stroked my arm. "You saw a frown, didn't you?" I did." "Well, you know what that means, right?" she asked, staring deeply into my eyes. "It means you're going to die." That shocked me. "Why would you say that?" "Because I'm going to be the one who kills you." I yanked my arm away from her touch. I tried to respond, but my voice died in my throat. My wife, my beautiful, lovely, sweet wife, had just threatened to kill me in her normal honeyed voice. It was as matter of fact as if she had asked me to switch the laundry over. We locked eyes and she smiled wide. Too wide. The skin at the corners of her mouth cracked and slowly but violently pulled apart. The skin tore in strips, and blood spurted from the wounds. She didn't react at all. Instead, she crammed her hands into the sides of her mouth. She squeezed down on the shredded flaps, her fingers as tight as a vice, and yanked her arms away from her body. Her face tore and ripped away from her skull. Each hand held a jagged edge of bloody flesh. It wobbled in her grip, the nerves firing off their last bit of stored energy. The muscles under her skin twitched and pulsated. Blood oozed from them. She dropped the skin, and it plopped to the ground with a wet slap. Her hands went back to her face. Putting both hands back in her mouth, she started pulling up. Hard. She let out a strained grunt that gave way to the bones in her face and skull cracking. Some shards burst through the muscle as the top of her head lifted off her body. With a final bit of effort, she pulled the top of her head clean off. Underneath was the featureless face of the Pied Piper figure. Without thinking, I threw a punch. It landed with a crunch, but it wasn't the wood that crumbled. It was my poor fist. The Pied Piper raised my wife's hand and shamed me, shaking her finger back and forth. The Piper reached into the gap at her neck and yanked hard, splitting her body in two. The halves of my wife's body felt like a butcher had sliced them. Standing in front of me now was the now human-sized wooden Pied Piper. It had freed itself from the crib and it had come looking for me. And now that it had me, it raised the horn to its face. Music started playing inside my head. For a fleeting second, I felt my body calm. My mind, which had been racing like a lost Andretti relative, instantly had soothed. The edges of my vision softened, and from the piles of meat in front of me, I saw dozens of plants rising. My house gave way to a verdant meadow with soft, rolling hills in the distance. The sky above was so blue that I had to shield my eyes from the color. Fluffy, balloon-like clouds scudded across. The firework explosion of blooming flowers drew my eyes away from the sky. They were the most exquisite colors that I had ever seen, unnaturally vibrant. Not long after, fat black and yellow bumblebees zigzagged in a blossom to drink up the alluring nectar. It felt like I had stepped into a painting. Everything was so real, but it had a sheen of artificiality. As much as the music rendered this serene image in front of me, it urged me to let go. A dark corner of my brain was screaming for me to wake up from the illusion. My monkey brain knew something was wrong. What's all the racket? It was Anne, the real Anne. She emerged from our bedroom, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. The return of her voice, her real voice, helped lighten up the darkened part of my brain. The art project melted away, and the red returned. I saw Anne's horrified face and heard my scared subconscious screaming again. "Run!" I yelled. I pushed past the Pied Piper. I grabbed Anne's hand and yanked her along toward the front door. She stumbled, and only through an act of God and many intense arm workouts did I keep her upright. If we fell, I knew that we would be goners. I grabbed my keys, whipped open the door, and we took off for the car. "Get in! Get in!" I yelled, fumbling with the keys to the car. "What's happening?" I saw a face on the moon, and it was frowning. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her facial reaction said everything. We both slid into the car. I fired up the engine and I glanced over my shoulder to make sure that I wasn't about to take out some poor sap walking his dog late at night. When I turned it back to the house, I saw the Pied Piper standing in the doorway. He wasn't alone. All those wooden rats had ripped themselves off the crib and had come to life. Only they weren't the size of regular rats. Not even the size of the burly New York subway rats. These things were as big as Rottweilers. Like the Piper, they had no features, save for the razor-sharp teeth. "What the hell are those?" "Rats." "Well, from where?" "The crib," I said. "Our crib? Hey, after tonight it's the dump's crib. Buckle up." The Piper played music, but I couldn't hear it this time. But the rats could. They turned their attention toward my car. The lead rat hunched down and launched itself onto my hood. It misjudged the slickness of my car and fell off. But by that time, the second rat was airborne. I jammed the car into gear and slammed on the gas pedal. My car rocketed backward into the street. The rats kept coming. A third and a fourth leapt through the air and landed on my trunk. They started biting the metal and, much to my amazement, the metal started crunching. "What do we do? Can we stop this?" An idea popped into my brain. I threw my phone at Anne. "Call my dad. I have to ask him about the song." She dialed his number. I heard a pop from the back driver's side tire as she did. The air came screaming out. It sounded like someone in distress. The passenger's side rear went too and the back of my car dropped. I shifted into drive and I pressed on the gas. My car lurched forward, but something caught in the tires and it kept us from escaping. A rat had wedged itself in the wheel well. We couldn't move forward, and so I switched to reverse to rock out of it, but it was to no avail. We were stuck.
"Hello?
It was my dad's sleepy voice.
Is something...
"Are there more words to the lullaby?"
What?"
More metal crushing from the back and now the rear doors. The rats were eating through the car. My heart dropped when I saw the empty car seat in the back. A horrid thought flashed in my brain. Would I ever get a chance to even meet Mac? The Piper kept playing. The rats kept eating. I kept panicking, but I held it long enough to ask, "Dad, what are the other words to the song?"
I used to only sing the... Hold on. Gail, what were the words to that horrid German song that we used to sing?"
I could hear my mom waking from her sleep. At the same time, another rat jumped on the hood of the car. It hissed and started gnashing at the windshield. Anne screamed. That got my mom moving.
"What's wrong?"
My mom asked, her voice panicking. "I'll fill you in later. What about the song?"
Go out at night and...
No, after that. After the moon frowning.
Let me think.
The windshield spider webbed as the rat broke a small hole in the glass. Mom, hurry!
If the moon brings forth your doom, pray for the sun to return soon. Or something like that.
I pray to whoever the hell is listening, God, Buddha, the sun, to return and burn these things to ash. Please, Anne added. The rat in the hood of the car had broken the entire windshield out. I reached over and grabbed Anne's hand. I gave it a squeeze. Baby, I'm so sorry. I love you more than you'll ever know, I said, tears flooding my eyes. I love you too. Mac and I both, she blubbered. We closed our eyes and waited for the end. I knew the next thing I'd feel would be the gnawing of wooden teeth against my bones. But that didn't happen. Instead, I felt an intense warming sensation spread across my body. Through closed eyelids, the darkness purpled until it was bright red. I opened my eyes and an intense yellow light immediately stung me. It was coming from the middle of our yard. I shielded my eyes with my hands, but I tried to sneak a peek between my fingers. But the light, it was too intense to get a look. I heard sizzling and screaming as the rat in the hood ignited and melted into a puddle of black goo. It slid off the car, leaving a trail of sludge and a mark on the cement. All the rats were melting. I put the car in park, pushed open the door, and, against Anne's screaming, I stepped into the street. The light had dimmed from its peak, but it hadn't gone out totally. But the intensity was such that I could see it clearly now. A ball of pure, pulsating yellow light hovering in my front yard. What the hell? I assumed dozens of neighbors would come rushing out of their homes to see what the commotion was, but nothing stirred. The light had done the impossible, causing a ruckus in the suburbs without attracting a Karen. The only thing the light bothered was the rats. The rats and one other thing. The Piper. The figure was standing near the glowing ball, staring at it. It no longer had any interest in me. It raised the horn to play again, but a blast of white light from the ball ignited the Piper's hand. The figure turned to run, but it was already too late. The ball of light flashed again. It was so bright that it briefly lit up the entire neighborhood. The heat was so intense and focused that, in mere seconds, it had reduced the Pied Piper to a pile of ash. Like literally in a flash, the Piper was gone. The ball of light, it rotated toward me. We stared at each other for a beat. I didn't know what to do, and so I nodded at it. A nonverbal thank you from a flesh and blood human. It quickly flashed 3 times before winking out. As it did, something heavy thudded on the grass. I was standing in the dark again. Is it gone? Anne asked, climbing out of the car. I think. Jesus, she said, laughing. Our car is wrecked. I made my way over to where I had heard the object fall. As I got to where the glowing ball had been, I saw a perfect circle burned into my lawn. Inside that circle was the carved depiction of the smiling sun from the crib's headboard. Holy shit, I said, picking it up off the ground. It was slightly warm to the touch, but it didn't burn my hands. In fact, I found the warmth comforting, like a hug. Anne joined me. She delicately ran her fingertips over the carving. We have to keep this. It saved us. Yeah, I said, reaching out and touching her belly. It saved all of us. With perfect comedic timing, Anne said, The rest of the crib has to go, though. We laughed like idiots for 10 minutes. Afterward, I managed to guide my busted car back into the driveway. As Anne had declared, it was truly wrecked. How the hell was I going to explain this to Geico? I called my parents back and told them what had happened. They didn't doubt me. They were at the house 15 minutes later and they stayed the rest of the night. Dad even helped me drag that crib to the curb. "Who did you order this crib from?" I asked. "Somebody on Marketplace." "Show me." Anne brought up her phone messages and searched. She scrolled and scrolled and scrolled. She stopped, confused. The messages, they're gone." "Maybe the ad is still up in the store," I asked, knowing the answer already. It wasn't. Just another layer of what the hell to an already well-layered screw this cake. Anne told me everything she could remember about the account that she messaged with, but had limited information because who would bother to remember anything like that? She was hunting for a decent sale, not making a best friend. Turns out that she found neither. Everyone else had fallen asleep. I'm sitting in my office staring at the carved sun and writing this out. I'm hoping somebody out there might shed some light on this for me. Has anybody heard this song? Does anybody know anything about the crib, or how the moon and sun figure into it? Where was the land the Piper was showing me? Crap, why was the Pied Piper even a part of it? How screwed up were my ancient relatives? Best as I can tell, and granted, this is all speculation on my part, is that the song may have activated the crib. In turn, that awakened the face and the moon, which activated the Piper. I don't know what the energy ball was. I have no clue how the person selling this thing had tracked Anne down. I don't see how any of this, magic works. All I know is that this entire ordeal felt predetermined. I can't shake that feeling. That forces beyond my understanding and unconstrained by time and space aligned in just a way to kill me off. The uneasy feeling that this was supposed to happen to me, like my bloodline was supposed to end tonight. What about my lineage had pissed off the moon? What horrid curse is in my blood? And am I passing it down to Mac? We stopped the Piper for now, but I'm worried that he might return. I plan to hang the carved sun in Mac's room for protection, probably over his regular Amazon Basics crib. The boy will be the centerpiece of the room, not his creepy German bed. It's silent in the house now. There's no Piper music in my head, but I keep expecting to hear it again. He showed me some strange land which must have been important to me or my family, right? He was trying to lure me somewhere, but where and why? I'm gonna put on a pot of coffee. I'm not sleeping tonight, and not until the sun rises anyway. I'll take all the protection I can get.